திருச்சிற்றம்பலம். புழியர்கோன் பொழித்த புகழியர்கோன் கடல் போற்றி. ஆழிமிசை கல்முதப்பில் அணைந்த பிரான் அடி போற்றி. வாழி திரு நாவலூர் வன்றொன்று பதம் போற்றி. ஊழிமலி திருவாத ஊரர் திருத்தாள் போற்றி. திருச்சிற்றம்பலம். We have been discussing thirugnAna Sambandar's story and last time we had we had seen his story from birth till he sang the Avinai Padhigam in Tiruchengodu. So today we are going to continue his story from that point onwards. As I mentioned last time, thirugnAna Sambandar's story is a very with a lot of details. Even though he lived only till about, when I say he lived, at the age of 3 he got Shiva's grace and drank the milk of knowledge, and then he was singing padhigams, and by about 16 he had completed his mission and he wanted to merge back with Shiva, so he prays and he merges back with Shiva. So he sang padhigams for a period of about 13 years, and of which there were so many padhigams, and we have about 384 padhigams available, even though he sang many thousand padhigams. A lot of them were lost. Okay, so with that background we will continue with the story. So Tiruchengodu, he sang the Avinai Padhigam and removed the fever that all his devotees had. And then after some time he resumed his pilgrimage tour, and he started returning back along the banks of Kaveri, going east. Sirgadi is on the central part of Tamil Nadu, and he went along the banks of Kaveri to the western part of Tamil Nadu, and now he is returning back from there. And as he was coming back, he comes back visiting various temples on the way, and then he comes to Kumbakonam area. I may have mentioned it before. Kumbakonam is a very interesting place. It is a heart of the temple culture. So it's on the banks of Kaveri River and heart of Chola kingdom, and the Cholas built so many temples in that area. So if one stays in Kumbakonam, and one can spend 5-6 days visiting temples around Kumbakonam. Within a 30-kilometer radius of Kumbakonam, there are maybe about 50-60 temples. So that's a kind of a very major pilgrim center. Anyway, so Sambandar is coming back, and he reaches the neighborhoods of Kumbakonam, and he visits a temple called Chattimutram, and that's a Shiva temple, and he sings padhigam. And then from there, if you walk about half a mile or something like 700 meters or something like that, like a 10-minute walk, you will come to another major temple called Pattiswaram. So these two temples, Tiruchattimutram and Pattiswaram, are nearby temples. So he had darshanam in Tiruchattimutram, and then he started walking towards, he started on his trip Pattiswaram temple. As I said, it's 10-12 minutes walking distance. But it was, summertime, noon time, so it was extremely hot. So Shiva decided to give a shade for thirugnAna Sambandar. So the Bhuta Ganas come with very special shade, and then the devotees hold that shade so that Sambandar can walk in, Sambandar palanquin can be carried in the cool shade kind of thing. So what I'm saying is that thirugnAna Sambandar is so special that Shiva takes care of every one of his needs without him asking for anything. And then he goes to Pattiswaram temple and worships that temple. Pattiswaram is a very famous temple today. A lot of people go there because there's a Durga Sannidhi. The Durga in Pattisaram temple is very popular. But you know how it is with popular temples, right? The people come in their cars, in their whatever mechanisms, bus, whatever. They come, they go to the Durga Sannidhi, worship, and then they are in a hurry. They go to the next temple. So Durga Sannidhi is in the outer part of the temple, and inside there is a big Shiva temple, Dhenupureeswarar. More than half the people don't even go inside the temple. That's how the current mentality is. Anyway, so he goes and worships there in Pattisaram, and then he visits other temples. As I said, there are so many temples in Kumbakonam area. He visits number of those temples and sings padhigams in those temples. And then he comes to a salam called Thirugnāna. Thirugnāna is a major temple, and Uma Devi worships Shiva there in the form of so the Kamadhenu and all that kind of thing. So Avaduthurai is a major temple, and this is where Tirumular sang, or Tirumular stayed for a long time and sang Thirumandaram. So thirugnAna Sambandar comes to Avaduthurai and he is staying there, worshipping Shiva there. And as I was mentioning earlier, thirugnAna Sambandar's father was accompanying him in these pilgrim tours. But several months have gone by now, right? So now the thirugnAna Sambandar's father wants to return back to Sirgazhi, and he goes to Sambandar and says, the time has come for me to return to Sirgazhi. I want to do various yajnas for the welfare of the world, and I need some gold for that. I need some money to do the yajnas, because doing yajnas require a lot of materials, and you need money for doing the yajna. So Sambandar says, okay, let me request Shiva. So he goes back to the temple, and near the Dvajastambam there is a Balipītam, and so he stands next to there and starts singing a padhigam. He sings a padhigam, Vedaranyam Thalarinam Yanadurunoi. I think we may have discussed this. It is 3.4. I am trying to see whether we have talked about 3.4 in our discussion before. Let me just check and confirm. I think we probably have not we have discussed it, right? We have, looks like we, or maybe not. Okay. So he sings he goes there, he sings this padhigam 3.4. Yedarinam Thalarinam Yanadurunoi Thodarinam Unakal Thodarinam. In that padhigam, he says, O Shiva, I am always worshipping you. Whatever happens to me, I will worship you. And I am such a devotee. Now my father is looking for some money to do yajnas, but I don't have any to give to him. What is your grace? Is this, then basically he says, what is your wish? Do you want me to give him money? If so, you should give me money. That's the implication. So he says, is this how what is your grace? If I don't have anything to give to my father, is that your wish? So he sings the padhigam. At the end of the padhigam, one of the Shiva Bhutams comes down and gives, it places a pouch, like a purse, on the Balipītam, and says, this is Shiva's Shiva has given this for you, and this has this is a Ulavakiri in Tamil, like Akshaya Patram in Sanskritam, right? In equivalent word in Tamil is it Ulavakiri. Kiri means a pouch or a bag, and Ulava means that which never becomes empty. So this is a never emptying pouch, bag of cash. So someone that takes it, and it's the tradition is that it had 1,000 pieces of gold in it, and he gives that to his father. Says, Father, this has 1,000 gold coins. You can use this and this will never go empty. So the beauty is that today you take out 20 gold pieces and use it for buying whatever, giving it whatever, doing right, and then tomorrow you open it, it will still be 1,000. So you can keep giving from it all the time, and it will never run empty. That kind of a special bag of gold. So he gives that to his father and says, "Father, you can go back to Chirgari now and do your yajnas that you wanted to do." So Sambandar's father, Sivapada Hridayar, he returns to Sirgari. Sambandar and his entourage of devotees, they continue their pilgrimage. And then they visit various temples in the Kaveri Delta region. And they go to a place called Dharmapuram. Dharmapuram is a small village near Karaikal. Karaikal, if you want to know where it is, the Dharmapuram, Karaikal, these are next to a famous town called thirugnAna. A lot of people who are doing this Navagraha Sthalam trips. ThirugnAna is the Sthalam where Shani worshipped Shiva. Now a lot of people go to ThirugnAna to worship Shani. That is the beauty of today's times. Anyway, so Karaikal is about 130 kilometers south from Pondicherry on the coast. And so next to that Karaikal is Dharmapuram. And Dharmapuram is the place where the uncles of Tirunilakanda Yalpanar, they are living there. So Tirunilakanda Yalpanar's family, right? These uncles and aunts and all those people, they are all there. And Sambandar sings padhigams and everybody is happy. And Tirunilakanda Yalpanar, as we have seen from the last session, he goes with thirugnAna Sambandar. He and his Tirunilakanda Yalpanar and his wife Matanga Cholamani, both of them are accompanying Sambandar, and Tirunilakanda Yalpanar plays Yaḻ. Yaḻ is Veena. So he plays Veena as an accompanying instrument as Sambandar sings. So his uncles, right, Tirunilakanda Yalpanar's family folks, they are all very happy, and then they make a comment saying that Sambandar's music, Sambandar's singing is enhanced by your accompanying Yaḻ music. So they thought that they are praising Tirunilakanda Yalpanar, and they make that kind of statement. But Tirunilakanda Yalpanar feels that they are made some inappropriate comment, because he reads it as Sambandar's singing is enhanced by Tirunilakanda Yalpanar's Veena music. That means that if Tirunilakanda Yalpanar's Veena music is not there, Sambandar's singing is less impressive. Something to that effect, right? So Tirunilakanda Yalpanar requests Sambandar, Swami, you please sing a padhigam which cannot be accompanied by this Veena music. That way everybody can understand the greatness of your greatness and your song's greatness. So thirugnAna Sambandar sings one very famous padhigam. It is 1.136. Madar Madappidiyum Mada Annamum Annador Nadai Udai Malai Magal Thunayana Magalvar. That's how it starts. That's the first line. It's padhigam 1.136. And in this song, he uses a lot of gamakams and all those things. In the musical instruments of those days, and they could not accompany with gamakams. The limitations, the instruments have limitations, and those instruments cannot follow the gamakam. And the tradition is that before Sambandar sang like that, they probably did not have that gamakam concept. Again, I'm not a music expert, but I'm just giving you an example. But later on, if you listen to Oduvar's singing this padhigam 1.136, you can understand how they sing. And by the way, traditionally the Oduvars used to sing this in Nilambari Ragam, but in modern days they tend to sing this in Atana Ragam. Just information for you. Anyway, so he sings this Madar Madapadiyam Padhigam that Tirunilakanta Yāழ்panar could not accompany in his Yāழ். So yes, Tirunilakanta Yāழ்panar feels that with such great music that Sambandar is singing, he shouldn't carry this Yāழ் with him around to accompany, because that gives people the wrong idea. So he wanted to break that Yāழ். But Sambandar says, don't worry, you accompany in the Yāழ் as you can. And then they continue on their pilgrimage tour. Then they go to a place called Tirugnāna. Again, these are all small villages in today's times, and they are all in the region. Like, if you, the Kaveri Delta region, if you look at like a 50-100 kilometers radius, that's where all these places are. And Tirunilanakkar, we have, I think we have seen his story. This is a story where his wife sprays spit on Shivalingam to protect it from the spider bite. And so Tirunilanakkar invites him and gives him lunch and all that, and he goes with him to the local temple, worships there. And then, in fact, in that Padhigam, Sambandar occasionally mentions other devotees of his times. So in this Padhigam that he sang at Tirugnāna, he refers to Tirunilanakkar and says that, O Shiva, who is being worshipped by Tirunilanakkar of this town. That kind of thing. He mentions him. And then he comes to another place called Tirugnāna. Tirugnāna is a place where we have another nayanar, tiruttoṇḍar. We haven't seen his story yet, and he's one of the 63 nayanmars. And tiruttoṇḍar invites, welcomes Thirugnāna Sambandar, and then they go to the local temple, and then they worship. And in that Padhigam, Sambandar, in one song, mentioned tiruttoṇḍar's name, saying, O Shiva, who is worshipped by Tiruttoṇḍar, that kind of thing. Then he goes to a town called, another salam called Thirumarugal. Thirumarugal is a wonderful, famous temple now. And when he went there, he was staying there for some days. And one day, early in the morning, he was going to the temple. When they, in those days, they will get up maybe around 4:30, take their bath and do all that, and then go to the temple early in the morning. Maybe 5:45, 6, they will go to the temple. So Thirugnāna Sambandar and his entourage, right, maybe 20-30 people who are going with him to the temple, they all are walking to the temple. And as he was walking to the temple, from a nearby guest house, he was hearing a girl wailing. Oh Shiva, is this fair? Why did you do this to me? That kind of, she was crying and wailing. And Sambandar felt that, why is this girl crying early in the morning? So he stops outside that guest house and calls her out. She comes out and falls at his feet, and she's still crying. And he asks her what happened. Then she tells her sad story, that she is from a different place, and she belongs to the Vaisya lineage. Her father is a big merchant, and she is one of many sisters. right? And her father, he had a nephew who was living with him. Maybe he didn't have his mother, parents had passed away or whatever, so he was living with his uncle and helping him in his business. So his father had promised him that I will marry my daughter to you. And when the time comes along for the first daughter to be married, he chooses some other groom who is rich from some other place, and so he seeks wealth and marries his first daughter to some other person. And then the second daughter, similarly, he marries her off to some other rich merchant from somewhere else. Like that, all his daughters, even though he had promised that he will marry his daughter to this guy, one by one he is marrying off his daughters to others seeking wealth. And finally, she is the last daughter, and she feels that she feels two things. One, if my father breaks his promise, he is going to marry me off to some other rich merchant again, and if he does so, then he would have broken his promise, and that is very bad, right? Breaking a promise is a very sinful thing. So I don't want my father to get into that sin. And she also probably felt pity on this guy, So she says, if my father is, we know what my father will do. So let's run away from here. Let's go to a different town. Let's get married there, and we can set up our own life. So the girl and the boy, they escape in the darkness of night. They leave the town. They are going to some other place, wherever it is. And after a couple of days, they had come to this Tirumaragal, and they were staying in the guest house, right? In those days, every town will have a satram where pilgrims can come spend the evening. They will have somebody who caretaker who will make food at lunch and dinner time, so they will be fed. So all over India, we had those kind of charity places where pilgrims and other travelers can stay for free and get food, etc. So they were staying in the place, and in the middle of the night, because they were not married, they probably were staying in different rooms, different areas of the satram. And in the night, a cobra had bit this guy, right? And because cobra bite, you know what happens? People are dead in no time. So in the middle of the night, this guy has died, and this girl is left her house already, and she is in an unknown place, and the guy with whom she was coming as her escort or as her support, he is dead now. Now what will she do in life? So it's a very terrible situation. So she is crying, and all that she could do is that from her guest house she could see the gopuram of the temple, and she is looking at the temple and says, "Oh Shiva, how did you do this? Why did you do this?" etc. So this story she tells Sambandar. Then Sambandar looks at the girl, and with his intuition, with his divine knowledge, he could see the devotion in her, right? Because even though he has not seen her before, he could see her inner devotion, what kind of virtues she has, and he felt that such a good person should not have to face this kind of problem. So from there itself, he looks at the temple and sings one padhigam. And this is padhigam number 2.18. Sadayai yenumal, sarani yenumal, vidayai yenumal, veruva vilumal, madayar kuvalai malarum marugal, udayai tagumo ivalul melive. O Shiva, is it proper that you are causing such misery to this wonderful devotee of yours? And like that, he sings entire padhigam. All the 10 songs, he will repeat. In every song, he will repeat this rhetorical question. "Oh Shiva, is it proper that you do these things to this girl? Is it proper that you make her sad? Is it proper that you make her cry?" Like that. So at the end of the padhigam, with Shiva's grace, that dead man will come back to life. And obviously you can imagine how happy the girl is. And of course the guy who died and who woke up, he may not know much, but the girl knows everything. So they both fall at his Sambandar's feet, and Sambandar takes them to the temple, and that day he gets them married. He performs the marriage for them. They both get married in Sambandar's presence on that day. And in fact, this event is celebrated in Tirumurugal. So every year they have a festival for this. And anyway, so this is one of the wonders that Sambandar did as he was going on his pilgrimage tour. So I may have mentioned before, Sambandar is so special that Sambandar, Shiva gives even before Sambandar asks, and if Sambandar asks, it is done. There is never Shiva says no to Sambandar's request. So Sambandar says, is it proper for you to make her cry like this? Immediately Shiva restores this guy back to life and removes her, makes her happy. And then they continue on the pilgrimage, and they come to a place called Tiruppugalur. Tiruppugalur is a very big temple, and when we talked about Thirugnāna's, I would have mentioned about Tiruppugalur, because Thirugnāna's final temple visit was in Tiruppugalur. He comes to Tiruppugalur, he stays there for some time, he worships Shiva, and then he merges with Shiva in Tiruppugalur. So Tiruppugalur is a special place. Of course, these are all I'm telling you, just a background for the town. So thirugnāna Sambandar goes to Tiruppugalur, and there is another nayanmar, Murugan. And Murugan nayanar, he welcomes thirugnāna Sambandar, and they both go to the temple. And Sambandar sings a padhigam in the temple, and in that padhigam, Sambandar again highlights Murugan nayanar's service to Shiva. This is 2.92 padhigam. In that padhigam, he refers to Murugan nayanar. And then, at that time, Thirugnāna's was on his separate pilgrimage tour, right? And then he happens to come to Tiruppugalur. This is not his final visit to Tiruppugalur, but at an earlier time. So he comes to Tiruppugalur. And so Sambandar and Thirugnāna, they meet in Tiruppugalur. They had earlier met once in Sirgadi, right? That's when Sambandar calls him Upper. Now they meet again for the second time. And then when they are talking, Thirugnāna says, hey, Swami, I was in Tiruvarur, and they had this Tiruvadurai festival, and it was very nice. And he was explaining all those details. And Sambandar immediately, wanted to go to Tiruvarur and see the Swami. So Sambandar goes with his entourage to Tiruvarur, worships Shiva there for some time, and then worships other temples around that, Tiruvarur. And then he returns back to Tiruppugalur, because he wanted to meet Thirugnāna again. So he comes back to Tiruppugalur. Thirugnāna was still in Tiruppugalur at the time, and so he meets with him, and again they are together. And then Sambandar wanted to continue pilgrimage with Thirugnāna. So they both go on a pilgrimage, visit some temples together. So Thirugnāna and Thirugnāna Sambandar take leave from the devotees in Tiruppugalur, and then they started visiting other temples. And as we know, Shiva gave a palanquin to Sambandar. So Sambandar used to go in the palanquin everywhere. But now Thirunavukarasar and Sambandar are going together. So out of respect for Thirunavukarasar, Sambandar did not want to go in palanquin. So Thirunavukarasar is walking, Sambandar is walking along with him. And when Thirunavukarasar saw this, he said, "Why are you walking? Shiva gave you the palanquin, you should come in the palanquin." So, but Sambandar says, "No, I don't want to go in palanquin when you are walking," out of respect. So then they come to a compromise. Thirunavukarasar says, "I will go first, you follow me in the palanquin." Or maybe Sambandar told him, "Appare, you go first, I will come behind you in the palanquin." So from that point onwards, they did pilgrimage together for some time. But Thirunavukarasar will first go to a place. Shortly after that, Sambandar will come to that place. And then they will stay together in that place for some time. And then to the next place, Thirunavukarasar will go first, Sambandar will follow in his palanquin later. Like that they were doing with a lag. So they went to various temples, and they went to Tirukadavur, and then finally they come to a place called the Thiruvezhimalai. Thiruvezhimalai is a very big temple and very famous temple. And this temple is where Vishnu worshipped Shiva and got his Chakravayudam. That is a legend. So in this place, we know the story of Chakravayudam. So there was a asura called Jalandhara. So the Jalandhara asura was a very powerful asura, and nobody could defeat him. And finally, somebody, they say, "Hey, we are not equal. You go fight with Shiva. He is powerful. He is equal for you." So Jalandhara decided to go to Kailasam and fight with Shiva. So he is on his way to fight with Shiva. And at the time, Shiva appears as a Brahmin in front of him and asks him, "Where are you going?" He says, "I'm going to fight with Shiva." And then the Brahmana says, "Shiva is very powerful. Are you sure you can fight with him?" He says, "Why do you underestimate my power?" So the Brahmana says, "Okay, let me see." And then he draws a circle on the ground with his toe and says, "See if you can lift this circle. If you can lift the circle, then you are strong enough to fight with Shiva." So Jalandharasura, with all his effort, plucks out that circle that the Brahmana, Shiva in the form of Brahmana, had drawn. And as soon as he picked up that circle, it becomes a chakram. And then it cuts Jalandhara into two pieces and kills him. So from that time onwards, the Chakravayudam was with Shiva. Vishnu felt that if he had this Chakravayudam, that will help him do his protection efforts well. So he wanted the Chakravayudam. So he comes to Thiruvezhimalai and worships Shiva every day for a long time. And every day he will pluck 1,000 lotus flowers and do archana with those 1,000 lotus flowers using Sahasranama. Right? And this was going on for a long time. And one day, Shiva plays a Leela. He makes one of the flowers vanish. So Vishnu is doing his archana, and he has done 999 thing namas, and then he has come to the final one, but there is no lotus flower to offer. So immediately he says, he plucks out one of his lotus eyes and offers it as a lotus flower to Shiva. And Shiva is, at the time Shiva blesses Vishnu, and gives him the boon that he was seeking. He gives him the Chakrayudham. So from that day onwards, Chakrayudham is with Vishnu. That is the local legend. So this is a very famous temple. And so Tirunavukarasar and thirugnAna sambandar are staying in this town in their separate places, right? Because each one has a entourage, right? Sambandar may have 50, 100 people with him, and some Tirunavukarasar will have maybe 50 to 100 people with him. So they were staying in separate camps. So wherever they go, they will stay in separate camps. So they were staying there and worshipping. And as I was mentioning, when they go, they don't just go see the temple and then go on next day. They go to a place, stay for some time, whether it is a week, whether it is longer, depending upon the nature of the salam and various things. So they both were staying here for some time and worshipping. And during this time, there was a famine. There was a shortage of foodstuff. And you know how famines occur, right? So something happens, either crops get destroyed by pests, or maybe there is no rain, so crops don't yield as much as we need. So there is a imbalance between demand and supply. There is a demand for foodstuff, but there is no supply, not much supply. So as we know from economics, when there is imbalance in demand and supply, when supply is demand is high and supply is low, we know what happens to price. And we know the other way too. When the supply is high and demand is not there, we know what happens to the price. So here there is a demand, but there is no food supply. So price is very high for foodstuff, and there is shortage of food. So that time, Shiva appears in the dreams of Tirunavukarasar and thirugnAna sambandar one night and tells them, you will not be affected by this famine, but you don't have to worry. Even your devotees will not be affected by this famine. So long as the famine is there, we will give you a gold coin every day, like a daily bata. And you will find it on the Balipeetham in the temple. So next day morning, Sambandar and Tirunavukarasar, they both get up, and then they meet on the way to the temple. And Sambandar tells Tirunavukarasar that this is what Shiva told him in his dream. Tirunavukarasar tells Sambandar, yes, Shiva told me the same thing in my dream too. So they go inside the temple, and then they walk around the temple. And in Tiruvizhumalai, it's such a big temple that there is a Balipeetham on the eastern side, there is a Balipeetham on the western side. As you know that there will be multiple Balipeethams. And so in the eastern Balipeetham there is a gold coin. One of them takes it, and then on the western Balipeetham there is another gold coin. The other saint takes it, and they give it to their entourage. There will be somebody who's in charge of the kitchen, let's say. So they give that gold coin to that person in charge of the kitchen, and with that they can go buy the food stuff and feed everybody. So they return back to their camps, and then let's say at 12 o'clock, that's when the lunch is served. So Tirunavukarasar camp, they serve lunch at 12, and Sambandar's camp, they serve lunch at 1:30. And then Sambandar afterwards, Sambandar calls his entourage, the key devotees in charge of the kitchen. He asks them, you guys are all always prompt and good. What happened today? Why were you not able to serve lunch on time? What happened today? And then those people told Sambandar, Swami, we don't know. You and Tirunavukarasar both got gold coins from Shiva, and when we took our coin to the market, the merchants said that this coin is something, there's some problem with this coin, that they have to inspect it and test it and ensure the quality of the gold or all those kind of things. So it took us a lot longer to assess the quality, and then they said that this is a little bit inferior quality, so they have to discount it, and then they gave us the provisions. So that's why it took us more time to get stuff from the market, and that's why we couldn't feed everybody on time. But Tirunavukkarasar's gold coin, the merchants accepted and they gave them provisions immediately. We don't know why, but this is what happened. So Sambandar is thinking, Shiva is giving gold coin to both Tirunavukkarasar and myself, and why is the gold coin different? Why is Tirunavukkarasar getting good quality coin and I am getting a little bit inferior coin? What is the deal here? I need to ask Shiva. So next day, he goes to the temple along with Tirunavukkarasar, and then he sings a padhigam. Vastirave kasu nalguvir, masil medalir yesilillave. So this is the padhigam 1.92. That's the first song. He says, "O Shiva, give me coin which is of good quality, which does not have to be discounted. If you give me good coin, then I won't be criticizing you." Something like that. You will not be criticized. So at the end of the padhigam, Shiva, from that day onwards, Shiva gives sambandar also good quality coin. So people used to think about it. Why did he do this leela? And one interpretation is that Tirunavukkarasar is a dasa. He is doing service, physical service. He goes to the temple with his uravaram, which is the implement that he carries. He does the physical service in the temple, gardening and all those kind of things he does. So Shiva is giving Tirunavukkarasar wage kind of thing. It is for his service. Whereas Sambandar is a son. He goes around singing songs, going in palanquin. He's a son. So he's getting better. So Shiva wanted to show the difference between pocket money and wages. That is one interpretation. Anyway, so from that day onwards, Sambandar also gets good quality coin, and they both get provisions, and then they not only they feed their own devotees, but then they also announce to the town, right? Anybody who needs to food, come and eat here. That way, because they could get food, because Shiva gives them the gold, so they not only fed their own devotees who were with them, but they also fed all the other local devotees who were there who needed help. So this is how they stayed there for some time. So maybe they were staying there for like a month, maybe 2 months, maybe 3 months. Right? I would say probably about 3 months they would have stayed there, for the season to change, for the rains to come back, and then for them to have food again. So they stayed there for a number of months. So Thiruvanyamalai has a lot of padhigams. Remember, based on the padhigams you have got, Thiruvarur has got a lot of padhigams. Chidambaram has got a lot of padhigams. Thiruvanyamalai has got a lot of padhigams. Of course, Sirgazhi and Tiruvadigai, they also have a lot of padhigams. So if you look at which Salam has how many padhigams, Thiruvanyamalai is on the top 5 Salams, something like that. I haven't counted, but I roughly am saying. So then they proceed from Thiruvanyamalai to a place called Vedaranyam. Vedaranyam is on the coast, further south from Nagapattinam. Right? You go further south, that's where Vedaranyam comes. And there's a big temple, and Sthala Puranam is that the Chatur Vedas worshipped Shiva in that place. That's why it's called Vedaranyam. In Tamil it is called Maraikkaadu. Kaadu means or Aranyam, forest or jungle. Marai is Vedam in Tamil. So that place is called Maraikkaadu in Tamil. In Sanskritam it is Vedaranyam. And there they both go to the temple, and then to their surprise they find that the main entrance to the temple is locked. All the devotees are entering the temple from a side entrance. They ask, what is the reason, what's going on? And the local people tell them that, sir, we don't know. For ages this is how it has been. And we always, everybody, all for generations, not just now. My grandfather and our great-grandfathers, everybody has been going through the side entrance only. Nobody has ever gone through the front entrance. We believe that the front entrance had been locked by the Vedas. So none of us dare to open it, so we don't open it. So thirugnAna sambandar says, even though Vedas may have done this, but we as devotees, we should be able to enter the temple in the right way. So Sambandar looks at Thirunavukarasar and says, Appare, can you please sing a padhigam requesting Shiva to open this door for us? Then Thirunavukarasar started singing. And he sings a padhigam called Panninner Mozhiyal Umai Pangaro. And he sings the padhigam, Thirunavukarasar padhigam has 10 songs. So he keeps singing first song, second song, third song, 8th song, 9th song, 10th song. The door has not opened. And then in the 11th song, Thirunavukarasar says, "Oh Swami, don't you have any pity on me? No? Don't you have any karuna for me?" Like that he says, Irakam ondrile remberumanire. So, oh Lord, you have no mercy on me. And as soon as he sang that song, the door opens. And of course you can imagine, if a padhigam is sung and the temple door opens on its own, the door that has never opened for hundreds of years, you can imagine the ecstasy that the local devotees would have had, and you can imagine the happiness that Sambandar felt, and you can feel the relief and happiness that Thirunavukarasar felt. Finally Lord heard his pleas. And then they both go in and then worship Shiva, and then they come out, and then after they come out, Thirunavukarasar looks at Sambandar and says, "Swami, please sing a padhigam and make the door close. That way, from now on, the local people will be able to, on a daily basis, they will be able to close the door and open the door. They can worship in the normal way." So Sambandar agrees and says, start singing a padhigam, Sauduram Maraidan. And as soon as he sang the first song, Sambandar padhigam we know that has 11 songs. As soon as Sambandar sang the first song, the doors closed. And then everybody is happy. So they both return to their camps. Sambandar goes to the camp where he is staying. Thirunavukarasar goes to the guest house where he is staying. And that night, Thirunavukarasar keeps thinking about this. I sang 11 songs, after which Swami opened the door for me. Sambandar sang one song and Swami immediately closed the door. How great Sambandar is. How many more lives do I have to go through before I reach such level of devotion that Sambandar has? So he keeps thinking about this. You know how it is, right? When we are thinking about some idea comes into our mind, we keep thinking about it and it bothers us. We can't sleep. So Thirunavukarasar keeps thinking about it in the night. And that's when Shiva appears in a divine form in front of Thirunavukarasar and says, "Come to Vaimur." And we have seen that part in Thirunavukarasar's story. So the Shiva in a divine form, he keeps moving forward and Thirunavukarasar keeps running after him. So they go all the way up to Thiruvaimur, which is maybe about 10, 15 kilometers, 20 kilometers away. So as he reached there, Swami disappeared, and Tirunavukarasar was wondering, why did Swami make me come here, and he vanished now. And in the meantime, next day morning or whenever, Thirugnāna Sambandar felt that Tirunavukarasar has left, so he comes and finds out that Tirunavukarasar has gone to Thiruvaimur. So he comes with his entourage to Thiruvaimur. And as soon as he comes to Thiruvaimur, Tirunavukarasar says, this is what happened. Swami brought me here, but then he vanished. And so Tirunavukarasar sings a padhigam, and in the padhigam he sings, O Shiva, now Sambandar is also here. How can you still hide yourself? And then Sambandar, Shiva becomes visible to Sambandar. Then Sambandar shows to Tirunavukarasar, Appare, look here, Shiva is here. Then Appar is also able to see Swami. So this is all happened in Thiruvaimur. So they both stayed in Thiruvaimur for some time, and then they both returned back to Vedaranyam. And then they are staying in Vedaranyam. And this is when messengers from Madurai come. And that part of the story we will continue in the next session, because if I start there, it's a long episode, so it will go for half an hour or so. So what we will do is that we will conclude at this point for today, and in the next session we will look at what the messengers told Thirugnāna Sambandar. So with that, I'll stop here. If you have any comments or questions, you can ask now.
Yeah, nothing much.
No.
Okay, then we will conclude here and continue next session. Richitrambalam.